Make them without Baiju for those of you who want a break from Baiju, which is a legitimate thing. But we'll be tasting a number of Baijus in the course of the evening, and which you can see, and it's going to be a real opportunity to taste them with food as well, which is kind of a really neat experience because Baiju is meant to be consumed with food. So I just thought I'd mention that to you. So we can continue to make a few cocktails if you want them before we start. Once we get going, because the cocktails are shaken, we won't be making them in the course of the talk because they won't be able to talk. No one will be able to hear them. What?
I can shake outside.
She'll shake them outside.
A couple of,
but they'll be slower.
Yes. The cocktails. So we're going to go through regionality of the Baiju a lot, and we're going to talk about what Baiju is and its different intensities. But towards the two cocktails, the paper crane is with a lighter or a strong aroma Baiju, so it is the less of the intense ones. And then the 20th century, because that has a lot of chocolate notes as an actual Baiju, is with the sauce aroma, so it's much more intense. So if you really want to get into the Baiju cocktails right away, start with the 22nd century, and then if you want to ease into them, start with the paper crane.
We also recommend having a beer chaser available to you. It's not a bad idea just to kind of cleanse the palate.
Or sparkling wine, as
sparkling wine works very well.
Sparkling is also a good idea. And towards the food, guys, which you're welcome to help yourself now and get up and grab it if you want. The first thing is some XO sauce, which is a really traditional, very intense sauce, so it's going to go really well with Baiju. It's from the guys at Dilo. I would have picked up today. They were really nice. They closed, but they still made some for us. And then Stephen picked up two different kinds of Szechuan dish. It's the same dish, one with fish and one with beef, so if there's any vegetarians in the room with the fish. The fish is on the left. It's the one with the fish in it. You can see it. So yeah, we'll start in a couple of minutes. There's also rice, which you definitely want.
Yeah, we're trying to set things up so they can show some.
We're having technical challenges because there's no AV guy here for the thing.
So Jonathan's being the AV guy.
I think the only thing we need is a more spoon. It's like spoon. Yeah, the spoon's there for the actual serving. Cheers, you guys. Feed yourself. Feed yourself. Everything you need. Yes, Jeff. Thank you.
I want a spicy fish, which made with green style, chili oil, garlic, and spicy. So each the white fish go with this one, Baiju from Sichuan bottle, and it's like a little bit fruity, citrusy, easier to drink. I'll go with the citrus. And then when you move on to more like sauce aroma of the Baiju, you go with like those red meat.
How do we do this? Should we take one bowl of rice like
You can just eat the fish. If you find it you want a little bit more rice or carbs, and you can grab some rice. But you can how do you like it?
Behind you.
So this is really good stuff. That's perfect.
Yeah.
I love that. Sure. What?
And then spoons are here.
It's for you guys.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it's very.
There's also a spittoon here for later.
You can combine as well. It depends on how you like it.
Okay, not making smart choices.
No. Today we use it for
When you get down there, you can even grab this food or something.
To warm up your palate so that we're going to start with lighter and
I'm surprised this one is I've got a lot of people with it.
I'm in 2019. It's definitely more
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. It's amazing. That's what we're going. Yes. Yes, Devin Andre. He's part of the Toronto Race.
Richard back.
Yes, yes. He mentioned He's got a most I saw he in the basement first, but he told the Baiju, so I don't know if he's
We were using that one, but we'll see this
yeah.
One of those is for you.
Sorry.
Can I just sorry about that. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt, but I just want to say I've actually seen this on shelves and it's terrifying.
So there's food here. You want to pair with it? And then we'll start pairing with pork straight
Yeah. How are you doing? Welcome. This should be really wow. Okay, well, great that you're here because this is the #1 spirit in the world.
Thanks, honey.
Too intense. And then the background is
People are now ordering.
That's okay.
It's so funny when down there, he came back to the site and he's like, he's an idea
How are you?
Not too bad, yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not.
He's gonna be so upset.
And is this his third lap? Yeah. There's no one sitting there? Okay.
I want to on the way to I don't want to steal your
It's right behind
Oh, do you need one? You need a glass or you're okay? So, this is, I'm gonna
no 2 by
Sergey, how do you like it? You try it?
Not yet.
you want, you guys need glasses.
Yeah. So, there's 2 discs, and then when we turn around,
So I think there's like another race.
oh, I have to reconsider.
No, you have to. No, it would be wrong.
That Andrew's phone, or you put on that big what's the live stream?
You show up really like
We're just like, we'll walk around. They're going to
Absolutely. The heaviest. The heaviest.
yeah. Socializing is often
Okay, so we're all set up.
very social.
Okay. So we're gonna get started. I'd like to welcome you all to the Drink Cafe today, and want to express our continued gratitude to the Drake Hotel for hosting these events and providing us this space free of charge. They're really generous in that. Soon we're going to be losing this space, of course, because you can see that the good weather's coming, And once the good weather comes, that patio becomes very, very important. And so we'll be probably shifting to another part of the hotel. There will be more about that in the coming weeks. So need to as well thank Jonathan Humphrey and Gord Hanna for their assistance in everything that we do with this. Without them, we wouldn't be able to do it at all. And without Beth Wooding, we wouldn't have our ability to be on Facebook and on YouTube as far as it goes. YouTube changed the rules on us, which kind of screwed us up a little bit. A couple weeks ago, they decided that you couldn't live stream on YouTube unless you had
50,000?
50,000?
Or maybe 5,000.
5,000 followers, which, you know, it'll take a while to get there. So anyway, we're going to continue to live stream them on Facebook, and we hopefully will then be able to post them to YouTube in the future. So the talk tonight's on Baiju. I'm really excited about this because this started years ago with this gentleman, Stephan Luo, who I've known since TTS days. He would come in as a customer at TTS, like myself. And when he would come back from China, he would bring Baiju with him for people to taste at the bar, which was very generous of him. That was my first experience with Baiju. And that's really where the idea for this seminar originated. And Stephan now has gone on to become a bartender, and he worked at TTS for a while, and is now at both Alouette and Blue Blood. And his depth of knowledge and experience with Baiju is really incredible. The second inspiration for this talk came a year and a half ago at Tales. It's almost 2 years ago now, when there was a seminar on Baiju. And I didn't go to it, but the people coming out of the seminar were raving about how wonderful Baiju was. And that included people whose taste I really respect. Of course, and Nick as well. I needed to say it that way. Now the third inspiration, which we're really, really lucky to have her here tonight, is Christine Sismondo, who has the more experience tasting Baiju and different Baijus than anybody else I know. She's been over to China on a junket tasting over 100 Baijus, if I recall correctly. And she has lived to tell the tale.
Barely.
And so it's going to be really great to hear from all three of these people. And I think we're really blessed with the depth of knowledge and enthusiasm that we have here tonight. So welcome.
I should make note that seminar I went to at Tales was because every year we close our bar and go to Tales as a team. And the bartender who is the worst behaved, I bring to the shittiest seminar I can find as early in the morning as I can find. So that year was Marshall, and we both like halfway through like, this is great. I was like, the punishment didn't even work. And I really fell in love with the spirit. So I really want to thank Stephen as well for guiding me, because I can't say the word church in English. So working my way through the campaign has been really hard, and you've killed it. So yeah. We are having some technical AV issues. Last time we did this with PowerPoint, one of the Drake tech nerds just like plugged us in and we were good. There are no Drake tech nerds here today. So I will make all the slides available online. There will be a link on the Toplack Tuesday page, and any relevant images I will walk around like a boxing card girl and show you all. So the food pairing is something to start with. Nick Liu and the guys at Dilo have been really lovely and dropped off some XO. XO is like sort of one of those, like in French culinary cooking, there's like the 6 basic sauces. XO is one of those sauces for Chinese cooking. And then Stephen's gone and picked up some Szechuan that I think he'll talk a little bit about.
I picked up the Sichuan fish and Sichuan beef. So pretty much they're one of the very traditional food pairing with Baiju, because Baiju, generally speaking, is over 50%, and Chinese people, they like it strong. The stronger, the better. And so you have to have something spicy, garlicky to go with it, and chili oil and the garlic. It's kind of like help you to coat your palate, so that once when you drink the Baiju, it tastes smoother and less harsh. And when you have food as well, it make you less chance to get drunk. So yeah.
But with all these Baijus, not that much of a less chance.
So before, like nowadays, people use like a small glass, like Christine just showing me, like a small shooting glass. Before, like we drink with this, like a bowl of Baiju, like cheers with a whole bunch of like guys and big women. Because in China, agriculture is very big part of the country's economy as well, and people just go to the field, do their work, and eat and drink. Yeah.
Towards that idea, the slide, which the information is more relevant, which is that Baiju represents 31% of the global market for spirits. The vodka is 19 and whiskey is 11, so Baiju represents a larger market share than all of the vodka and all of the whiskey combined, which is mind-blowing to me. And that's because it's the most consumed spirit in China. The average Chinese national drinks 9.43 liters a year of Baiju. The average Westerner drinks 8.2 liters of all spirits combined. So they outdrink us, which is something that I don't think people really think about when you think of like crazy drinking cultures. China's got to be the top right now. Before we start tasting all of them and going to regionality, we want to talk about on tasting Baiju. There's a couple things to really consider. The number one for me is volatility. This is the most volatile spirit. And by volatility, I mean the chemical idea of like it is gassing off the most. Like in about a half hour, this room will be really like, we're going to be like frogs boiling in it, but somebody walking in is going to be shocked. There's also a thing that we joke about at Civil Liberties, which are called the Baiju burps. Because it's so volatile, like an hour later, you're like, oh god, there it is again. And that can be nice. That can be very nice. The next thing towards tasting is novelty. You're going to taste a lot of new flavors that you haven't seen before, but your old factory bowl is designed to categorize flavors as you've had them before. So that's where you get a lot of the negative tasting notes associated with Baiju, things like green bins or other phrases, and that's only because of context. That's why we brought food, but we also invite you to separate out the context of how you smelled these flavors before and imagine them as a well-crafted thing that, you know, the vast majority of humans love. You want to talk about what Baiju means?
Baiju is Chinese traditional spirit made with a mixture of sorghum, rice, some other grains like sticky rice, stuff like that. And during the making process, we mix everything together, and every distillery have this like special machine to press like a square thing as a jump starter. It's called a chiu. Yeah, it's cheap. So they have small, they have big, and pretty much that's how Baiju is made.
Baiju means transparent spirit. So imagine if we took all of vodka, gin, aquavit, all the clear rums, all the white dog, and called them one thing, and then said, I don't like this thing, when there's such a variety of that thing. And that's sort of what we're going to talk about, the regional production methods, and try to open up that idea. And also just talk about that it is incredibly regional, and because of that it varies relatively significantly. We're actually not going to taste every region because that would be so wide that instead we're going to taste within our regions. So we're mainly working, we'll go through the regions, but you'll even see massive variance in that, as you would with gin or rum. It's also old as fuck. Baiju is arguably the oldest distilled spirit in the world. There is, I can't say that. Can you say that for me?
It's the Li Shizhen. So Li Shizhen, he's the guy, is pretty much the Chinese medicine god. He travel around the country, taste all the different herbs to write a medicine book. So to explain to the people which one is good for you, which one is, let's say, for example, if you have a huge headache, he will explain to you what medicine can cure it faster, naturally. Yeah.
And in 1597, he talked about a solid state fermentation. Don't worry about that phrase for now, we will get into it. In the Yun dynasty, and that is literally one for one how you make Baiju. So they've been doing it a really long time. There's also, they don't use the word Baiju, but the Songqi in 982 CE describes the exact same methodology for making Baijiu. So it's an incredibly old production method. Towards the idea of health claims, currently it has been reported that moderate consumption of Baijiu can help reduce uric acid concentration in your blood serum, which also has led to the reduction of Alzheimer's disease. It could also improve your serum lipid profiles in young people and decrease palate aggregation, which is like the lining of your mouth. And the non-alcoholic components are also very important in the prevention of cardiovascular disease. That does come from a Baijiu company, so a little bit biased, but Christina Sismona's is already shaking her head.
Like, I heard a lot about the health effects, the good ones. Yeah, like over and over again. I don't know, it's really hard to say alcohol's good for your stomach.
It is
in any context, but you know, this might be an exception.
This might be the only exception. So towards this idea of splitting up, we're going to get right into what's called the aromas. Aromas are how you categorize Baijius. There are 4 main aromas: rice aroma, light aroma, strong aroma, and sauce aroma. Sauce, but it's so much more fun to say sauce.
Sounds
Yeah, and then I guess, do you want to go through where those regions lie and a little bit about each one of them?
So China is divided north and south by one river. It's called the White River. So the Baiju that we have today, the first 3 bottles is from the Sichuan province, which is southwest of China. And this one, they have the focus on the strong aroma, and they have a little bit of citrusy, funky, and a little bit of how do I say it? Like earthy flavor. Yeah.
We'll get to that in a minute.
And then this one is Maotai. Maotai is from Baijiu province. It's in the middle of the southeast China. So this one has the sauce aroma, which is chocolate cake, banana that you will find later on when you taste it.
And then in the northeast, you get your light aromas, and then rice aroma, which is actually very similar to other Southeast Asian spirits. And as we talk about the fermentation starters, you'll actually see that they're very similar to koji. So rice is southeast. The main 2 ingredients are rice and glutinous rice. It is stone jar fermented. So the thing I love about Baiju is everything is different. But there's not only is it different than anything we do, it's different across the country. They age rice aroma Baiju in limestone caves inside ceramic jars. And the coolest thing for me is B polymethyl is the same thing you see in white rum, and that's the main feature. So when I'm trying to compare them, I always look at the same esters. So that gives you really the best profile outside of culture. And then light, so these are the 2 that we're going to sort of not breeze by, but are to us less exciting, I guess, because they're sort of the mildest of the Baijus. We're going right into the deep end with you guys. Light has no aging, and it's always done with pot stills, and it's got a lot of acetathanol, which is stone fruit. So that's your aptly Baijus and the lighter ones. Strong is from Sichuan, which is the first 3, which is what we're really getting into today, because even these are wildly different. They use single sorghum. Sorghum we'll talk about later, but you see it also in a lot of American whiskey, and sometimes mixed grains. And then it's fermented in earthen pits, so brick-laid pits that they often cover in mud. And ethyl hexanate is the major chemical in that, and that's what you get your big notes of banana from. And you get like other, like ethyl hexanol is also what produces when fruit begins to go off. That, like, you know, when you like open a bag of fruit and it hasn't gone, it hasn't spoiled yet, but it's incredibly fragrant. That's that chemical. And then sauce. We should talk later.
So sauce, they have the stone bricks, and they use the stone brick to ferment the grain, and then they use a cycle of fermentation. And also, before they put it in a bottle, they have to do at least like 3 years aging in the ceramic pot. So I find that this is the sauce aroma is the most complex, and also because of the labors and stuff like that, is the the most expensive Baiju.
We got some bowling blackouts for you guys. Right now we are drinking the first of these strong. So this will be the lightest strong, which I know is oxymoronical. It's called T5, or at least that's what the label says. The rest of it, obviously, Stephen can cover. T8, sorry. My You'll find it at the LCBO with T. We'll talk about buying at the LCBO in a little bit as well.
This one
cool.
smells like soursop to me.
Like soursop, yeah, totally. I get that.
Citrus.
Do you guys like this as the
I
first
like
one?
it a lot.
Who's in? Who's already out? Anyone already out? Is that Christina Sismondo? No, Sismondo. Let's get to that. Sismondo came in out and she's gonna stay out. I like that. Sauce aroma has the most amino acids you see in almost any spirit, and some of the highest esters. So for fans of rum, you're gonna, as we get into that, you're gonna get like super patina.
So this is just sorghum.
What?
Just sorghum.
This is from
This one is sorghum, and this one's all sorghum. The one you're about to taste is sorghum and mixed grains, and then the last one is all sorghum again. So you'll see a big jump. Yeah, it's so multi-central. The mouth feels really tense. The viscosity is pretty crazy to me. As we get into production, you'll see why that is. Yeah. So, has anyone had it with food yet? Yeah, the spice goes away totally, right? Like, you know when you're like, your mom's like, I don't like spicy food? I imagine now, that drink some Baiju, Mom. My mom would. So now we're gonna really go, I think, did it work? Does it work for you? Yeah, I found that food spicy as fuck when I started because of Irish.
Yeah.
And, the proof on this is 50%. So regular Baiju is 50 plus. They call light Baiju 40 to 51, and then weak Baiju is anything under 41. You don't see a lot of that. So the best way to explain a spirit is to talk about how it's produced. I think if you delve into anything, that's always the road home. So we're going to talk a little bit about the production. So does everyone know what sorghum is, or has seen a picture of sorghum before? If you haven't, I'll cue card it up. And again, these slides will be available online. Sorghum is an agricultural crop similar to corn, but doesn't fruit in the same way, so you don't get stalks. The other thing you use a lot of is rice husks. So that's a byproduct of making rice.
And also sorghum, back in the day, sorghum is a good fruit to, it's like a long shelf life. So people in that region, the farmer, they pretty much, they make like instant rice. They just like make a whole bunch and then they just store it there and it pretty much like stays forever. Yeah. That's one of the advantages of
Also,
doing so.
sorghum is very popular because it is very pest film resistant. It's one of those few things where like it is an incredibly hardy crop. Rice husks are a byproduct of production of rice, and they get used a lot, as does glutinous rice. Glutinous rice is obviously sticky rice, and you'll see that rich mouthfeel as we go on. This is my favorite part of talking about Baiju. You said the word.
Baiju.
Yeah, there we go.
Baiju.
Baiju, or I can't say sure. So they don't use yeast in the production of Baiju. Baiju is fermented in a solid state. So when you think about how to make whiskey or vodka or anything you know how to make, it's like a 98% water and then sugars and starches. This is like 60% water. So it's much thicker, and it's often spread out. So solid state fermentation is, oh yeah, for sure. I want it. To accomplish that, they use Q, which is a starter. Da means large. So the big starters are what you use in your on all of these will be Da Q, which are the big full flavored Baijus. They also come with these full flavored bricks. The way the bricks are made is you make a watery mash bill of usually wheat or barley, and then you press into a brick and you dry it. That brick molds and yeast grow in it, and then you break, after you've steamed your sorghum, let's say, you break the Q back into it, and that really rapidly kickstarts fermentation. And stratiation is when you take the starches and turn them into sugars. The thing I think is coolest is acetotinamites are the thing in soil that makes it smell earthy, and they grow in abundance in Baiju. So when you think about these earthy smells as we get into these guys, that comes directly from the Q.
The same reaction to Asian fruit cheese.
Yeah, exactly the same as
Same reaction of like Asian process of Brazil cheese.
Yeah.
So yeah, same idea.
And then Zaku is a white flavor, and that's only done with rice or rice bran. And that has a ton of lactic acid bacteria, so you're almost going towards a lacto fermentation, but the ethanol still takes over. And then the last one, which is a small starter, is actually only bran, and it is Aspergillus, which is the same family as Koju. So when you imagine things like soju, they all start with these same base.
Same thing. Sake.
Sake,
Yeah.
exactly. So that's the reason we didn't want to focus on rice or light, is because this is really where the spirit shines, I think. So once you have your Q, you steam your product in a dry state, and then you let it cool. As it cools, you then break the Q into it, and
How long does that have?
that takes 3 months, and it dries out and becomes a totally hard brick, and all the yeast and bacteria and fungus is just waiting, and then you're able to kickstart your dry product.
Just let it dry naturally.
Yeah. Baiju ferments for longer than I've seen any spirit ferment. Normally you see, like with agave spirits or anything else, you'll see like a 10-day fermentation, and we're like, whoa, 10 days in the heat. They'll go 3 months, like 4 months sometimes on some of these products.
Yeah.
Mount Tai is famous for having some 6-month ones. I think our second one is that, isn't it?
Second one.
This is over the second Mount Tai, or the first Mount Tai is over 6 months?
So this one is 3 years for sure, and this one is 6 months.
Yeah, yeah. And you also see continuous fermentation. So you grind your base product, you steam it, you cool it, you add your Q, you then do a first fermentation and a first distillation. You then take the husks again, put them back into that rotation, add new husks to it that you've begun that process, which means you have like a Solier method of macrobacterial life going through the whole thing, and cycles of distillation don't kill that growth. There's a brand that comes to Canada once a year, maybe, called 1573. It's super baller. Bottles are like,
Bottle one for you from Hong Kong.
I didn't know how much it was going to be, I gotta be honest. It was like $350.
What's that?
Yeah, that bottle we drank.
There you go. Here's your receipt, sir.
Yeah. you all know that when you're like, oh, what have I done?
I was in Hong Kong. Like, yo, are you sure you really want it? So, yeah, okay.
You didn't say, hey, it's $350. You said, are you sure you really want it? What do you guys think of the second one?
More grain-like.
More
Grain-like.
grain-like, for sure.
Much lighter. And the burn lasts longer on the tongue.
Is it, everyone is a human, so you all have Netflix. Has anyone
Actually,
seen
white gummy bear.
White gummy
White
bears?
gummy bears.
She says white gummy bears. I said pineapple, but I was like, it's the same
Pineapple.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. A big thing in Chinese cuisine that we don't see the same way is length of flavor. Like if anyone's seen the TV show Origins of Flavor on Netflix, it's really good. It's a super intense, singular look at a region of China's food systems and their like agricultural techniques. Me and Lauren, my fiance, kind of watching Humble the other day. She's like, too much. It's very intense. They often talk about like length of flavor. All these Baijus will for sure linger. But yeah, so a lot of these go through like multi-stage fermentations, and they just keep pulling and redistilling. And the only reason you can do that is because it's in a solid state. They do semi-solid state fermentation and full liquid fermentation, but it's much less common. It's less than 10% of the market. Almost all of what makes Baiju is this solid state fermentation. I have a photo here. Zoom. I will walk around with, which is them cooling it in spirals. So that's not what I mean by cyclical fermentation, but you can see it's solid. That is it fermenting now. They just mashed the Q. For the internet. So they're really spreading it out and letting it cool. And then what they will do, the Baijiu's already getting to me. Then what they do often as well is use mud pits. So they'll take all that grain and roll it into an earthen pit. And the 1573 we're talking about, they've been using the same pits continuously since 1573. And they don't clean, not clean is the wrong word, but they don't kill the cultures in those pits. So that's like a kind of microbiological like tradition and history that like we don't have a cultural touchstone for. I don't think how long that's been going on. And then they were covered in mud. And my favorite story I heard at the Baiju seminar I went to was he was visiting this distillery and they were pouring the distillate on top, like old distillate over the mud. And he said, why are you pouring like high ABV spirit over your ferment? Won't it kill the fermentation process? And the pitmaster, also a sick name for a job, was like, no, only the weak ones. Which I think is like the most heavy metal answer of all time. Like, yeah, it's pretty badass. And then we get into distillation, and I think you can talk about the word ergo. How do you say it?
The immortal.
That's the one. Will you explain what that is?
So immortal is like the basic Baiju that has no age and it's 53% alcohol minimum, and it's very body. It's one of the mass-produced Baiju from China. You can buy it like anywhere else, any store, and they don't usually have like crazy high-end stuff, and because they just mass-produce and sell it to like wedding parties. All the wedding parties has immortal. It's also because their label stands for luck and fortune, and everyone just drink it in the wedding party because it's cheap and it's easy to get. You don't want to drink this bottle at your wedding unless you work for the like crazy rich company and stuff like that to drink this like vintage bottle that you have to buy only from the distillery, or you know someone from the distillery that can save it for you for your wedding. So
you might be thinking, like I was thinking the first time I thought about this, okay, so it's in a solid state, you have high alcohol in your grain now, how do you make it into a liquid format? Unlike traditional stills where you would heat the outside because you have a liquid medium, you don't have that ability because obviously you would just burn off your ethanol. So they pump steam into the bottom of their pot still, which is very different. It's like a mesh bottom that collects the grain. Steam comes in, it heats the mash. As it heats and the steam goes through it, it creates what I consider like a little like natural column still, because the ethanol rises through the mash. It cools back down and falls again. So now you have a column still inside your pot still. That's just like the happiest accident of all time. And then out the top you get your liquid ethanol. So that's how you're able to extract a liquid medium out of the solid state fermentation, which is like the craziest piece of secular technology in my life. They also do second head distilling, which I think you can talk about in distilling. The second pot where you do so a pot still you can run back in on itself, and they also use that method to extract the maximum amount of ethanol out of it because it's not in liquid form. You're not doing what's called fractional distilling, where you're trying to cut the alcohol part of your liquid medium. Because you have the liquid medium, you can continually extract alcohol. Does that make some amount of sense to people? It's really weird to imagine, and if you've been to a distillery, you can't imagine them doing all this solid, because obviously with wort, you just open a tap and it goes. Baiju is way more high labor, because you're either emptying it onto a conveyor belt, or most often you're using paddles to scoop it in.
And also during the distillation process, the Baiju pot that we have is smaller, much smaller compared to the big one in making spot.
Yeah.
Because it's easier to do it in multiple times.
Yeah.
It's faster because the smaller pot we have, the faster it's going to evaporate, so we can do it over and over again.
And because you're not taking a massive liquid medium and putting it into a still, you can use a really small still to get really crazy high results. So for agriculturalists, it makes way more sense because you're not essentially moving water weight throughout your property. Then we get to aging, which I think is one of the other wild things. So a lot of pisco is very similar to this. They age in ceramic. Oh yeah. The aging? Yeah. You want to talk about
I'll show her.
No, I'll do that. You talk about it. So this is something aged by
So Baiju, we age the spirit in the ceramic pot. Some distillery they prefer smaller pots, some distillery they do like a bigger pot. And also depends on the quality, the specialty of the Baiju. They put it in the smaller pot to showcase that this is more high-end. And the bigger one, they usually is like a basic line product of Baiju. And on the other hand, on top of the ceramic pot, there's there's not a solid seal. It's the top, the seal is made with cotton, so the air can still go into the spirit for aging, and also adds a little bit of the funky, like more funkiness to the Baiju as well. We don't seal it dead like the Scotch. Oh, sorry. The air contact of the Baiju during the aging is much larger than Scotch. Other spirits.
And ceramics are breathable, so they're inert, so you get an incredible amount of oxidization. So now you have like everything you love about sherry, everything you love about funky rum, everything you love about soy sauce, all in one thing. And I think that's a good thing. Sismondo is really not. Can you tell us some? Is now a good time to tell tales, or do you want to?
No. I think we should wait till we get to the mountain.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That's ominous. That's called foreshadowing, everybody.
Why does this taste so different than the first two?
This one?
This one?
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
Single, yeah.
it's naturally.
Yeah.
It's like
We're getting into it now, guys.
it's like tire rubber.
Yeah, like a rubber eraser.
Yeah.
This
But if
one?
you were talking about like a Vino Verde, that would be a good thing. You know how like sommeliers, like if everyone's seen Somm, like pencil eraser and everyone's do it? Yeah.
This one is making the green.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not my bag.
Yeah.
That's not my bag.
I think this series single.
Right. So the reason this one's so different is we're now adding more than just sorghum.
Ah.
Yeah.
So this is the addition of other mixed grains. So, yeah.
After this comes off, when you heat it, remove the alcohol, what kind of proof will come off that?
Depends on the grain that you have. Like this one is more into like a rubbing tire, but I also has like a little bit of it's like a fermented like apple.
He's asking about the how high the alcohol is when it comes off still. It directly corresponds to the amount of steam pressure going in. So you get also really good control in a lot of ways in this process because you have your medium and you're pushing water through it. So and you can expect a certain amount of ethanol out of it.
Are there any laws dictating how high you can go, or?
High, no. The only things you'll see in terms of laws are when we get into the the soft aroma biochemicals. They have a minimum 3-year aging in ceramic. Let them rest.
Can you tell us the ABVs of the last two that we tasted?
Yes.
This one is 52% alcohol.
All the same ABV.
50 of them.
ABV has not shifted at all, just flavor. Isn't it crazy? How are we feeling about this one? Are we starting to get a little worried?
I am not.
You're not digging this? Have you ever had a sorghum, like an American sorghum whiskey? When Lucas Twyman did his talk here on American bourbon, he had a bottled sorghum whiskey. I find it really, we made a sorghum syrup as well. You can get sorghum syrup at a Kensington Market. It's like, corny is the wrong word, but corn is the closest analogy I could give you to what it tastes like. It's rich, it's got like
Starchy.
Starchy.
Very
taste.
starchy.
Yeah. Yeah. The syrup that comes out of it is incredibly viscous, a lot like corn syrup. Now is the time before we get into, as we get into sort of the very intense ones, we're going to talk more about like Baiju culture. So if anyone has any, like, if the solid state fermentation is still not something you can really consider, because it took me like a lot of reading, and I wish there were some slides to show you some more photos. This is sort of the time to ask those questions as we get into sort of more of the culture of Baijiu. Again, I would say the way this is made and the reason it tastes so different than anything you ever had is because it's made radically different than any other spirit in the world.
What size are the stills if they measure them in liters, and how does the shape compare to like the pot still or bottom still that we're familiar with?
Well, I can show you. The shape is very, very similar, and it still has a limbic arm on it. So it's still got the right angle, it's still got everything you need to make, like you can make whiskey and cheese. It's a very small batch. It would be same as like a fermentation tank if you ever been to a winery.
That's like 500 liters?
Yeah, or less. Yeah, very, very small.
Like the startup of the microbrewery.
Yeah, like what a microbrewer would start on is what you make Baijiu on, even at like hugely commercial levels. When you go to see these places, like I guess Christine, did you see any giant stills?
I went to the Mount Titus distillery, so I saw the biggest.
How big is the big boy?
Yeah.
Is it how big is it?
You know, I'm sorry, I should have looked at this up before, but it was the most impressive facility, period, that I've ever saw.
Really? Why?
Well, state of the art doesn't even begin to cover. There's no visitor center, but yet there are like holograph displays that you can go into and experience. Like but it's not open to the public.
Wow.
So this is just for visiting.
That's,
dignitaries.
Censorship is invited by the government.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And have you been? I'm sorry.
No.
It's
I would love to go. China, I would love to
Next
go.
time if they invite you, can we go?
Yeah, for sure. So the level of care and the level of investment that's gone into a visitor center that doesn't have visitors gives you the first indication of what you're going to actually see when you get in there and you see the state-of-the-art equipment. But of course, the pits are the opposite. Like they make you feel like you're going back in time to, so it's a real study in contrast. And there's no idea of, it's like Patron actually does something kind of like this. There's no idea of just make everything bigger. And it's like duplicate the process over and over and over again. So when you're trying, the Mount Tai distillery is acres. Because the pits, they're not going to make them bigger, they're just going to make more of them and spread them out over warehouse, like after warehouse after warehouse. So it's like nothing I've ever seen or smelled.
Yeah, we're really coming to go.
So let's take a picture with.
Yeah, we'll take a picture with that. Tag the Kennedy's government. If anyone takes photos and tag the government of Canada in this, we're sitting down.
I know her.
Clear that down. We've already posted on Beach.
We both.
Yeah.
Does China have like any kind of law to protect the name of Baiju? And do they have like any...
A DOC?
Yeah, like some kind of policy.
There's no DOC, but there's pretty strict cultural things. Like, not like, I guess all I can say is like in the same way, like, if you saw somebody making Pisco in Canada, I mean, there's a DOC for that now, but you'd just be like,
Yeah.
similarly, it's the same thing, like the consumer market for this, like we are wildly ignorant to this, but you imagine because it is like a $570 billion market, there's a ton of really well-educated consumers, and as we get into the expensive stuff, people spend, like at the LCBO, where we're talking about how to buy, you can find like the most expensive products the LCBO carries on par with Scotch is Baiju. If you want a trip to this, go to the Newmarket LCBO, and like the shit they have locked up is not Scotch. There's like Highland Park 18th like on the shelf, no one cares. And there's just a case of Mount Tai, all behind glass. So.
And do they have like laws to negotiate different kind, different variety for Baiju, or like it's just different because of price?
No, it's different because of regionality and production methodology and flavor. Like you'll see variants in these flavors, but they all come from the same region. And then when we get into, we're about to get into the sauce, this is like the shit for me. I love the sauce aroma. I talk about it like mezcal a lot, and I guess you might say that as well. Like palenques, if you ever get the opportunity to go to Oaxaca, are very rustic, and like this will show off like it's one of those rustic elements for sure.
And different distillery has their different master distiller, and he will tell people how to dry them off, how to make the chew. And it's hard for one distillery to replicate from the other one because number one, like the location is different, the humidity, temperature, and the sauce. the rice, the sorghums that they source is different. So, like for example, the aging process, they leave the brine on the ground for 3 months because your temperature from one distillery is different from the other distillery. Like you can't go to this distillery to, like you can open something by yourself and say, hey, I'm this brand distillery, like buy my stuff. Like you can't, because people taste it, they know, right? Because yeah.
So much variance. As we get into sauce, if you find this really intense, now is the time to go back to the food. I would particularly recommend the XO and chips are what's going to really like balance that off. I get a lot of like chocolate and pineapples and green beans and blue cheese all at once in a way that I really like. Like it's great. While you guys begin to enjoy the sauce ones, we're going to talk about the politics of Baijiu a little bit because it's really interesting. Again, in that same like divide of understanding. So the main function in terms of like, people drink this shit every day. It's not like it's not special stuff. You would drink it at home, you would drink it at dinner, but when you really drink it at weddings and
Business meeting.
and business meetings. And we'll get to business meetings in a minute.
Business dinner. Yeah.
But at a wedding, it is traditional for the groom to do a shot with every single goddamn guest.
What's the size of the shot?
Yeah, they're decent size, they're smaller, but it puts you on par with it puts you on par with a bartender at Civil Abuse. Like you're gonna have to and that's an incredible amount of liquor to drink.
Yeah. So imagine a wedding for like 500 people. Because in China, our wedding is massive. You're gonna invite all your friends and family from you. Let's say I'm gonna marry. I'm gonna invite my family and my wife and my wife family's family, like all relatives, like gather together and drink Baiju. That's like 30 cases of Baiju go down easy.
Time, right? That's what I said.
Bottle. Yeah, 53% alcohol. You have it down for every single table. Each table you have at least like 15 people. Yeah.
I have a picture on the slide, which you can just imagine, which is Richard Nixon visited China and had a traditional state dinner, and he was warned by the State Department that he would have to drink Baiju, and they spent apparently 2 weeks getting like trapping him. But here's the thing, like I don't like the guy, but he apparently threw down, like he did it. He went the whole way through not you stop drinking, the other person stop drinking, but essentially it's rude to not do a shot with somebody, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, like if we were drinking together, you know how like if you're at a bar and you're like, all right, that's me done, and like there's like another round, and if I say yes, you can say no. Not with Baiju culture.
Especially in your wedding and business dinner. If you want to sell business to, I want to sell business to Nick. So we're drinking Baiju. I have to cheer with Nick and Nick's friend, which is also like a business partner as well. Like cheers to you,
Right. And then again.
And then after that, after numbers of Baiju, it's been consumed. It's like Nick sign a contract, and then you sign.
Is the rule if somebody drinks, everybody has to drink?
Yes.
Or the
Yes.
whole-
Yeah, if one person drinks, everyone drinks.
Like one person raised the glass, everyone has to like.
So it's not so much a question, but
Please.
I've never seen my dad so drunk because I was there with my dad and my brother, and he was the eldest. So out of respect, they would always fill his glass up first, and Gambay, you would finish your shot, and then it would go on to my older brother, and then eventually on to me. But then by the time they did the rounds, it would loop back onto my father, and yeah, poor guy. But yeah, a lot of fun, but boy.
Yeah.
Oh, please, yeah, this is the one before too. Thank you for this, by the way. Oh, yes.
Are the distillers grape growers as well?
Are the grape growers? So it's all grain, and I actually don't know the answer to that. Do you? Do most distillers grow their own grain, or do they buy grain?
They buy grain.
They buy grain.
They buy grain. They all of them. Some of them they own the farm. They pretty much are helping the farmers to work together.
Separate business.
Yeah, just like agave to the tequila distillery.
What What do you guys think of this one?
It's so good.
Yeah, fuck yeah, right? Crazy. Now we're doing
Oh boy.
chocolate.
Finally one with flavor.
Yeah, chalkiness.
Shut
This is
your
like,
mouth.
we're winning, Christine. We're gonna do it. We're gonna turn this whole. Yeah,
Okay.
it's gonna be so savory.
Yeah, that is.
Sauce. This is the
Yeah.
sauce.
Yeah,
one.
this is it's old.
No, we have the next one. This is like Steven was very nice and brought this one in. This is like
Thank you.
the home root. Yeah.
Oh man.
But Baiju culture has changed really recently. And part of the reason it's changed is I want to tell the story of Diageo making a boo-boo. So Diageo saw the writing on the wall and decided Diageo is, for those who don't know, is one of the world's biggest liquor like companies. They own most of your favorite brands. They saw the writing on the wall and decided to get into the Chinese market. They bought a Baiju company, and then 9 weeks later, Xi Jinping, who is the now not indefinite, but he'll die. He'll be the chairman for a while. We got a long run with this guy. There was a lot of corruption scandals going on, so he dropped the hammer. That's not a communist joke, but it could be. On everybody, and said no more inter-party gifts. So people would spend massive amounts of money gift giving with Baiju. No more of that. And he also said no more business meetings, like drinking that essentially. He cut that shit off.
He, like, to be honest with you, as soon as he take over the power, all those corruption people, they have to either like give the money back to the government or you're gonna die. Like, it's only two ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like he's like that.
He is like that. That is true. He is very much like that, and that sunk the Baiju market hard enough that Diageo's stock took a. They recovered pretty quickly, but on a 1 point slide.
Yeah.
For like a 6-month period.
Yeah.
That's how intense the change in the politics were. I think that really speaks to, again, like the purchasing power of this product, and now that we're into like the good stuff, you can sort of see the difference in price. We've gone up a factor of 2 in terms of how much this costs now, and now we're getting into like this stuff you can really like. I think sommeliers are going to be the people who, more than bartenders, the people who like make this spirit a thing. Fab, you're having a hard time, right? Yeah. Get some food. Now really is the time that you're trying the food with it, not helping it.
No.
What's the ABV on this one?
The ABV on this one, I believe, is 53 or 53. So up one ABV point. But this is where I get like, what are you guys tasting in this one? Figgy? Yeah, I get a lot of fig. I get like raisin and like cacao.
Really?
And, like,
All I taste is dirt.
all you taste is darkness?
Dirt.
Earthy. All I taste is the darkness.
Well, that too.
Yeah, so the earthiness comes, again, directly from an incredibly long fermentation period. And the Baiju that has this long filament mold that is what gives earthiness.
I also hate blue cheese and beets.
Ooh, you came to the wrong seminar. Unknown P. Are you still on sparkling wine, or did you try this one?
No, I've had all 4.
Oh, yeah. What do you think of this one? Still?
Well, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I've had a lot of this in
Yes.
my life. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is the one that actually turned me. I mean, so for me, I'm in the wrong direction. I mean, I don't want to sound like I am against the spirit. As you pointed out, there are hundreds of millions, really, of different distilleries, right? They can't even keep track of the number of distilleries that there are in China at this point, right? I think. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I was there 2 or 3 years ago, and I've forgotten some, and I'm not sure that everything that I heard was exactly correct. But I went as part of a judging panel for a larger spirits competition that was about 50% Baiju and 50% other spirits from around the world. So we would get up in the morning and we would go to the convention center and we would drink 100 spirits in a row every morning, and 50 of them would be Baiju. And we did this for 3 days in a row. When I was before I went, I was given those little glass bottles that are in front of you in order to familiarize myself with Baiju. And I sat in the backyard and I tried them because you don't want to open that in your house.
The drink is close for lunch tomorrow, by the way.
I made that joke 7 times already.
And we tried them over and over again, and I was quite open to some of them, even the sauce one. But I think that going through 50 every morning or that number, I got to a point where I almost had like the bad tequila experience thing, where it was just that I sort of hit a wall with it. And now I can't really go back to it because of the volatility that you mentioned. And when I went to the Mount Tai Distillery, you can smell that from 10, 15 miles away, I think, you know, and you get there, it's in the air, it's everywhere. When you get to the pits, it gets overwhelming. It's a lot. And I made this joke way too many times, but I did think I would have to burn my clothes when I left the area because I hit a wall. And there we are at the business dinner, and there's like 100 judges, and we're all, you know, like doing hundreds of little tiny shots. And this one judge and I, we had to kind of like just hide in a corner because we just couldn't do it anymore.
That is a hard job.
It sounded, but I mean, it was a great experience, but it's weird. I think the bad tequila experience, which is something I've never really experienced with tequila itself, but that feeling where you just hit a limit, and now when you smell it, all you can recall is that. And I'm I'll drink Fernet, I'll drink almost anything, but I kind of can't do Baijiu anymore. Although, the end of the story is a happy note. There's a woman from Vancouver, Dragon's Mist Distillery, and I tried her Baijiu about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and Stephen Beaumont and I, we went to China together on the judging panel. And we tried it together, and we were both like, this is the best Baijiu I've ever had. It was phenomenal. Have you had it yet?
I've had hers, and it's something that in Portland is Ming City.
Oh, okay.
And they're both, I think they actually work together a little bit.
Interesting.
And Ming City are Vietnamese Chinese refugees who set up shop in Poland for their own community because they couldn't get any. And that's also some of the best I've had.
Okay.
Those are the guys who also did the first seminar who really got me onto it. So they're proselytizing the product.
But the Vancouver Dragon's Mist is a much lighter flavor profile, much more subtle. And so it would not work with what you're like, it's the opposite, I would say.
I would say it's the rice, it's a rice aroma, so it's super light and very agreeable. So the reason we didn't want to bring a rice aroma to the table today is because we were worried that having like the curvature of this top, the goal is to start high and finish at the highest point, so that when somebody finds a rice aroma Baijiu at the LCBO, they can really go from there. But yeah, it's delicious stuff. I'm really impressed with it.
So, because I think that would be also a much better entry level, right, for the average North American consumer, because I think this is a really intense spirit, and if you're hungover, like I'm sorry, I don't know your name, like your father was, I don't think you ever drink this again, no matter like, right, like, you know, is that
totally
about right? Like, did your dad ever drink Baijiu again after being hungover?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Yes, we have an endless supply of it at home.
You don't bring any? Oh, dog.
No, we do. My brother lived there for 8 years, so we have tons of it.
Oh, the family knows.
Oh yeah.
What do you guys think about this one?
So savory.
So this is to me it's like peanutty and like husky and really intense, right? Yeah, it's like peanut sauce. That's what I get off this one. I for myself, I feed it. I hopped the head in line on this one. I was like,
So for me, the smell is like a mix of soy sauce and balsamic.
soy sauce and balsamic for sure.
Yeah.
Has anyone ever had fenny? I know you have. Anyone else had fenny? The cashew spirit. Ever tried? You know fenny?
Like cashew nuts.
Yeah, yeah. It's like you see it in
It's the
TV.
distillation of a cashew apple.
Yeah.
Oh.
This to me shares a lot of commonality with fenny. And yeah, like this and the XO sauce go really well together as well. So I don't, your late arrival, Nick Luo brought us some XO sauce from Dialogue. It's good as well.
I thought it was
To me, this is like you have like stuff from Hampton or Woodley Park.
Yeah.
And to me, that says like a lot of.
I was like, we were with the Parker all along. Like,
Right. This has like that kind of logo.
Dunder, right?
Yeah.
So
Hampton is Dunder, Woodley Park is Dunder, but they do have a similar product at the end.
yeah.
With this like kick your ass smell.
Kick your ass smell. Also, Dunder is a really good metaphor for this whole process. So Dunder is in Jamaican rum. It's that exact same process. So I guess the last thing, while we taste the last Baiju, hey guys, sorry, we're almost done. So before we taste the last Baiju, we're going to talk about how you get your hands on Baiju, because away from even our own exploration, it's really hard to get the LCBO. I have a picture of a bunch of the LCBO people looking like idiots, and the tagline is, these dicks are no help for you. Kidding, I love the LCBO, it's really the best. No, the issue is they're very, unless you go to Newmarket to that LCBO, and I believe the manager's name is Jay, and he's like an incredible depth of knowledge and can like walk you through it. Your best bet, your search query is not Baiju, it's just the word China. The only way to find Baiju at the LCBO is China, and then just scroll through most of that. You'll see some other products, beer, but the vast majority of it will be Baiju. Sorry?
That's terrible.
I know, that's the only way to get it. Baiju, you get nothing. China, you get like 1,200 results. But I sort of, there's so much Baiju floating around. Sorry, it's possible. There's so much really good Baiju floating around the LCBO that I sort of consider this the last great hunt. Like, we all have gotten really good at querying everything and knowing what's coming in and knowing the reps. We don't know the Baiju reps, so you get a really great ability to go actually find like discoveries. When it was open, 86 & Co. on Dundas, Coffee Dave used to go in and like, he wouldn't know what he bought, but he would know that it was exciting, and then I would get excited about it. He'd be like, I have this bottle, and like I Google it, like, oh my god, like that's not even supposed to be here, and like we'd go back and try to return it, like, oh, the last time we sold one of these was like 6 years ago. So there's really old products sitting around, and also because the LCBO discounts stuff, the longer they sit on it, and because they spread it out, and because the only people buying are in Markham. If you're buying it downtown, often it's the case that it's deeply discounted, so you can get really good sauce aroma Baijus for like $46 instead of like $340 or whatever we bought it. Like duty free. $3.99. That's what it was. Sick.
I thought this is one you wanted to be collectible.
No, I drank it all.
That you didn't tell me.
So we're gonna finish off with this last sauce aroma. This is not from Mount Tai. This is 3-star. Oh, the other cool thing to talk about when you buy these is they're a real bitch to open in a really exciting way. The way the bottles open are really different than any of ours. The cases, that box is super. They're super intricate boxes you have to open, and when you crack the label, you know the under cap, the ring that gets stuck. These ones peel out. They like feather out into a rose and then self-destruct. It's so cool.
What?
Yeah, it's like amazing.
I don't know movie, so.
Yeah, like, you know what I'm talking about? Like when you crack them, like even where like this one has a little like
Thing. Yeah. You have to.
Come on, how cool is that? You know, like the little bits of extra you get with Baiju. That's sort of the whole spread of what we were excited to talk about. If there's any confusion, I mean, we're going to have a lot of these spirits at civil liberty to drink at all times, so you can come by and pick around. Not to like peg the bar or anything, but if there's any questions you have, sort of, this is the end of our rant. So, also, this is the last one, so it's sort of the one that's most fun to talk about. You're also welcome to come up and pour any of these bottles. I won't speak to Christina's bottles because these are the clown tagging bottles.
If you want to try, oh no, those I can't, I'm not bringing them home, obviously.
Get rid of it. She's like, get rid of
I
it.
want to try that other one that you just were holding also.
Okay.
You know, like, help yourself.
Sweet.
Happens every time.
Oh wow, this is 43. This is a weak one, which gives me a sense of sweet.
Rice only, and also there's like
It looks like Old Spice.
pear.
Yeah, pear. Oh yeah, so
The original Old Spice.
So Christine did bring a rice. Now that you got to the end of the sauce, you're at the top of the mountain. If you want to see what the Lush Valley is like, you can come back and try it.
Is the third one we tasted available here, or is that one that?
Third one is this one that Stephen brought.
Yeah.
Cheesy one.
No, this is the cheesy one.
It's that one, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that one available?
It used to be available at LCBO for
It is still.
yeah. Is this?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's super cheap here. It's 39, right? No.
This one, this label is, I believe they take it off.
Right.
They used to be a premium shell for like $300 bottle.
Yeah.
And then they take it off, and they now, I believe the LCBO, they only sell like 120, like 50 to 120, 50 range.
Yeah.
Baiju.
No, they have like $1,500 Baiju. 1,500.
Where?
Market, you want to go?
Yeah,
Yeah, let's go.
So is this typically drank just as a shot, or do you?
With food. Like you would have a section, like you don't see drinking culture. I haven't been there. I really want to go. Once again, China, I'd love to go.
They don't-
I'll be too.
We're
Yeah.
blocked
But not
on. We're
excessive
blocked in
as a
China.
cocktail.
That was actually, I did put a slide up, but I wanted to talk about how I see it in cocktails. I don't like, did everyone try one of the cocktails?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
like
I
them?
really like it.
They've got a real like. So I always like. I think I've been thinking about a lot as a cocktail bartender in the last maybe 6 months when I got some really gassy, shitty Canadian rye. Was that if you have a big block and you're cooking it weighted, your end result can be a lot more composed than if you start with a really light, agreeable spirit. So this allows you to take like in both the cocktails, it's only an ounce pour. So there's not the usual ounce and a half, which is good for bar managers, obviously. But it's got so much intensity and staying power, you can really build, like, it's hard to overpower this. So like, I would never do this in Fernet. I find that, like, I've tried, it's too much. But like, in the same way Rittenhouse is like really meaty and you can really work with it, you can add a lot of big flavors to this. Like this and raspberry is great. Obviously the 22nd century is to show off chocolate. There's already like cacao note. But I think Baiju is like a really great cocktail ingredient, and it always breaks my heart when people open bars that have a Baiju focus to them of some sort, and then they do like Baiju and like melon water, like they make like tall drinks, and I'm like, it's okay in a tall drink, but as a stirred down condensed drink, it adds so much richness.
Like Baiju is good with infusion with butter. So
Butter?
Butter,
Yeah, you want to do that, but.
Yeah, so it's come with, I make a Baiju infused butter, which is
I
really
can
good
see
with
that.
sage syrup, peach, citrus,
Yeah.
and a little bit of chocolate in it.
You like
Where do you do that?
Yeah. Where do you do that?
I want to try. I want to try one.
Yeah.
Where do I get it?
No, not yet. I'm just testing it. Yeah, I present my idea to Oliver.
John and Oliver, let's see how that goes. I can see John Butter's notes now. Oh, there's a yay!
Well, I was on the question. I was just gonna say, playing with that same idea. I wonder what butter washed Baiju would taste like.
Yes, that's what he was saying. Yeah, it's good. Like fat washing.
Fat washing Baiju.
Because it's got so much structure, right? You're never gonna like you can take a bottle of gin and not ruin it, but like remove all the qualities that you want from the gin. You never be proud of it by that.
But what you do is still there.
Is that a modern, sorry, is that a modern practice or is it ancestral?
No, this is the production or the cocktail. Oh, butter is very modern. He just thought it was a
Yeah,
genius.
modern, right, yeah.
Yeah. That's just a smart to this man.
Some fun.
Does it have a shelf life, or can you keep it?
You can keep it
Oh, you
pretty
can
much
keep
like,
it.
as long as you can. Yeah.
Nothing beats Baiju. Nothing brown hands and stuff. And it's already hyperoxidized. It's all like a bottle of scotch.
And then it can also relate it to the fermentation process that we go through. The master distiller, he poured the whole spirit to the mash milk to give it more complexity, more flavor. Yeah.
What do you guys think of this last one?
I really like this one.
It's like a Jolly Rancher.
What?
Yeah,
So it was the previous one. So you guys are into like the deep, rich, like aroma, but you also get.
This
You
is
like-
less savory.
You like
Also, if you guys look at your glasses in the light, Baiju has the craziest legs I've ever seen on any spirit. It's just nuts. They're not actually like, what? Legs for days, man. Legs for days.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a ton of stone fruit again all of a sudden, but still
Yeah.
like rich soy sauce, like
But super tropical.
yeah. And that's the thing. These are only 2 regions, right? You've got 3 other regions you could explore. There are like 6 other styles. I can try the Roman.
I did.
That was
yeah. It's very like crazy.
Actually, sorry.
Yeah.
Speaking of regions, like you said, the first couple were from like Szechuan, like in the south. Or
Yeah.
Where are the remaining from?
They're from what's the other come out? Where the sauce is made in? I can
This one is Guizhou. Guizhou, the sauce. Yeah. Guizhou is in the middle of southwest China. Guizhou. So Guizhou, so Sichuan, and then next to it is Guizhou.
In the remaining alphabet, or those are all from Guizhou?
Yeah. So we only did Szechuan and Guizhou today.
Okay. Thanks.
Just to sort of look at the most intense of the flavors. The light one here is a rice one from the northeast, correct?
Yes.
So this is a northeastern one. Are you sure we're okay to offer it up? Yeah. She's not bringing it home apparently.
She's like, get rid of it.
Any other closing thoughts or questions about? Oh,
Nick, I had a question about this steam and the still.
Yeah.
Is it super high pressure, or is it kind of like a gentle?
It's force pressure.
Force pressure.
So it's like a quick blast,
Quick,
and then it's kind of.
and then they do it multiple times.
Yeah, like imagine like when I was booting my friend's car today. You know, you rev your battery to get the other guy's car going.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, like that. Where like you blast steam and then let it run through blast steam, so you're not blowing the grains up the window.
And how long is that process?
How long?
Is it like over 10 minutes or 24 hours?
Like probably continuously, maybe I believe 3 hours.
Yeah. But they will then use that grain and toss that grain not in the garbage, and they're like they will put it back in different places.
And that also refer.
Yeah.
That question can also refer to different distillery.
I see.
Yeah. So
is that going to affect the profile?
and what flavor they are looking for? Like how much percentage they want to get from that.
So the graph of what you change is how long you ferment for, and then how many times you reuse it. Going this way, and then up is your distillation time. So like a lighter Baiju will have a much shorter distillation window, and a sauce will have much longer distillation.
Like for example, pure rice Baiju. Of course, they're going to distill shortly because it's just only one grain. And if they mix with sorghum, rice, and other sticky rice or wheat, whatever, it's going to be longer because they want to extract more flavor from those.
Now, if you guys go back and try the light, it's like the vodka of Baiju. It's like fucking no problem.
So are any of these pure rice, or are they?
No, this one is pure rice.
That one's
That
pure
Christine
rice?
brought. These are all sorghum. These are all pure sorghum, and these are sorghum with mixed grain.
Okay.
Cool, guys. Well, thank you. I hope you guys begin the Baiju one. Let's drive to Newmarket.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
China. We're super eager. I guess are more drinks available now if anyone wants them? Yeah. The bar is back open. If anyone wants to try a cocktail, the bar is open again. Feel free to stand here. These are the ones that China is funded to have to get final tax. So you won't try those. She said just bring them together and
This one, they got it straight from the Mount Distillery. This is the sample,